What is up, tube users? I am the Stereotypical Gamer, and welcome back to another fantastically fun games for under $15. Today, we're talking about a game that I completely forgot existed, but is one of the great spin-off games and one of the greatest April Fool's games of all time, and that is Far Cry Blood Dragon. I still remember when this game was announced. It was announced on April Fool's, like the year after Far Cry 3 got released, and everyone kind of just thought it was a joke because it just seemed like a cheesy action kind of flick. It didn't really seem like there was much to it, and then a month later it releases and it's not a full-fledged game, right? It doesn't have as much content as Far Cry 3, but it's still a lot of content, and it still has the same kind of bare bones of a Far Cry game, and it just really takes the Far Cry formula and simplifies it into this small, retro, fun 80s story, and it is just so well done. And the comedy in this game, I'd completely forgotten about how humorous this game is, and it is really well done. I love the comedy in this game, and I really love the art style in this game. It's like a cyberpunk aesthetic before cyberpunk was really popular, which is kind of cool. And I really like how they simplified a lot of gameplay aspects from the Far Cry series. Like, for example, I don't think there's any crafting in this game. The looting system is also a lot more simplified. Like, you auto loot over bodies, and like all of the different like chests you can loot you can see on your map, which is nice and simplified. And I just like how it's just all concised into a nice, neat, small package of a game. And it does that while keeping the core gameplay aspects of Far Cry the same, which are the best parts of the game. I think the gameplay loop of going to these different outposts and taking them out different ways is a lot of fun, and it's probably one of my favorite gameplay loops in all of gaming. Like, Far Cry really nailed it in this game, especially with the aesthetic and kind of the comedy around like what you can do to these different outposts and overtake them. It's really fun. And I really enjoyed the story in this game. I don't remember it fully. It's been a while since I've replayed through this game entirely, but it is a really good mix of like action movie and comedy, and I love the main protagonist and his kind of like deadpan monotone voice. It is just so spot on perfect. And I absolutely love the tutorial in this game. I think the comedy for the tutorial starting out is really well done, and just how they introduce each of the gameplay aspects. They do a really good job, if you've never played a Far Cry game, introducing you to all of the different mechanics and stuff in a fun and funny way. And even though a lot of the weapons feel the same as they do in Far Cry 3, I think they did a really good job of giving them like an overhaul in terms of textures, in terms of sound and stuff. I love the kind of laser sounds that they make, and I love the kind of overall aesthetic of the weapons themselves, and especially like the bow. I love the cyberpunk version of the bow in this game. And I think in this game, getting headshot kills on enemies is more satisfying than any other Far Cry game. I love the kind of blue blood explosion on the cyber enemies when you shoot them in the head. It is just so good. It's so satisfying, and no other Far Cry game does that as well. I think because they were able to go a little bit over the top and make it a little bit more unrealistic, it just makes it all that more satisfying to get those kills. And even the base price of this game at that $15 price point, I still think is pretty worth it. There's not a whole lot of content. I would say it's like 15 to 20 hours overall of content, so you're not getting a whole lot from that $15, but for the price of, I think it's like $4 right now, it is absolutely worth it if you enjoy any of the Far Cry games. This is just a great, fun spin-off to play. But there are some issues with this game, so let's go over some of the bad aspects of Far Cry Blood Dragon. One of the biggest issues I had with this game is the online capabilities. Every time, or basically every time I tried to pause the game, and when I started and launched the game, it tried to connect to the like online servers for Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, and they've been offline for quite some time, and so they just never connect, but there's no way to like stop it from trying to connect, and you're just stuck waiting for it to try and then fail, and then you're able to play the game, which is weird because you could just play the game offline. Obviously, I'm not playing on any server, but the fact that it always has to try and connect every time you pause the game is really annoying. While I love the stylizations of the cutscenes in this game, you know, I love the kind of widescreen comic book feel that they bring. During each of the cutscenes in this game, because it's a widescreen, it's not taking up the full monitor. In the bottom right, where it's completely black, there's this giant text that says press space to pause, press space to skip, or something like that, and it is really annoying, and it just really ruins the immersions of the cutscenes because there's no way to get rid of it, and it's just there in every cutscene, and I just absolutely hate it being there. But those are my two biggest issues with this game, and from what I've heard, they are going to be disabling online features like by the end of this month or something like that, and so I'm hoping that will get rid of this like trying to connect to the servers bug that they have, because it is one of the biggest reasons not to play the game currently. So maybe this update will fix that, and then you're just left with the annoyance of the cutscenes, which isn't that bad. It doesn't fully ruin my immersion, but it's still really annoying, and I wish there was a way to get rid of it. But I think this game still holds up pretty well, even 12 years later. I think the graphics still look pretty good, even by today's standards. And the gameplay, well, it's a little bit clunky in terms of like movement and aim and stuff like that. It still holds up pretty well and is still a lot of fun to play. And I love the 80s action style comedy that the story has to offer, and I love the main protagonist's voice acting in this game. His deadpan, monotone, no emotion kind of way of expressing things is just so well done throughout the entire game. And I love this kind of style of gameplay of just blending action and comedy together. It's so well perfected in this game. There's so few games that do it well, and I just wish there was more games out there that took action and comedy and blended it this well together. And I absolutely loved the marketing tactics they had when they released this game 12 years ago. And it's crazy that I still remember it, but it was so well done. Basically, they released gameplay footage of this game on April Fool's, and everyone thought it was just going to be an April Fool's joke because it just seemed like a cheesy 80s action thing. It seemed just kind of not really of the Far Cry series, because they released Far Cry 3 the year before, which was really well acclaimed, a really great story and stuff, and so to take a complete 180 into this like cheesy 80s action with this monotone deadpan protagonist was a real change. And then the game actually released a month later, and it just felt like a bigger DLC to Far Cry 3, but it was so well done, and there's a lot to it, like a lot more than I think people thought when they first saw it. And so just the marketing for that was just so well done and so perfect for this game. Another thing I think Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon does really well compared to other Far Cry games is gives you a really great kit of different like weapons to use really early on to give you different strategies for taking out outposts. I think with other Far Cry games, you don't really have that option of stealth early on. Like you'll get the bow somewhat early, but in some of the games you don't, and you kind of just have to go loud for some of those early outposts until you get silenced weapons. But in this game, you kind of just get a full kit right off the bat, so you can kind of take out outposts any way you want to from the start, which is really nice. I really enjoy that. And I love the kind of look and aesthetic of the blood dragons in this game. They kind of act like just basic hostile animals in other Far Cry games, and you can use like a bait to like distract enemies, and then they'll attack enemies that are close by and stuff like that. So they just kind of feel like giant hostile enemies, but they have a lot of different lore to them, and I love the kind of coloration and aesthetic to them, especially like when they're attacking, they're red, they're passive, they're green, and when they're like alerted for something, they're yellow. It's just really well done. I love the coloration overall on them. But that's gonna be it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like if you did. Comment any other fantastically fun games for under $15 you know of, and I'll definitely check them out. And make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.